Three, two, one, action. Welcome back to episode 20 of As Seen on Screen. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Gracie, and we're your source for all things entertainment news, reviews, interviews, and more.
You can find us wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts on Spotify and YouTube. But we are back this week with our second TIFF recap. We have now finished up the Toronto International Film Festival. It wrapped a few days ago.
That's
And
why
we,
we're back to being virtual.
yes, we are no longer together in person. Back to reality. But we have our second half of TIFF to recap. Last week, if you tuned in, we recapped our first 5 days at TIFF and the movies we saw and some interviews we had. So this week we are now back with the second half of TIFF and all the interviews we had then as well. On another note, I can't believe we're already on episode 20.
I
That
was
was weird
just
to
thinking
say.
that as you said it. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
But we are so glad you're all here. So let's jump right into it. Gracie, let's start off with, I think, a film that surprised both of us, and I think a film that pleasantly surprised a lot of people, which was,
Piece by piece.
yeah,
Oh, I'm obsessed with this film. By far my favorite film of the festival. If you saw my recap video that we posted to socials, I am a huge fan of this film. Honestly, I've said it time and time again, every time we have talked about this film. I expected nothing going into this film because I thought it was such a weird concept doing a documentary with Lego. Um, but after watching the film and getting to hear Pharrell actually talk about the logistics and the inspiration behind using Lego and what it was like to collaborate with them on this, it was just so inspiring, but also so thought out. And you could tell that him and the director put so much love and care and effort into this. So I think that really transfers through into the movie. And I'm also a huge music nerd. Like that's where everything started for me. So seeing the way he looks at music and hears music, and then how it gets interpreted by the different people in the movie just scratched my brain the right way. I was like, I love this. I love music nerds. I have the utmost respect for Pharrell Williams after this, and he did make me cry once or twice. So, slay.
I thought it was really interesting too because, like, one thing we talked about obviously is why Lego. Going into it, like, what would make you choose Lego to tell a documentary? And I believe it was in the Q&A when they were talking about it during the premiere with Pharrell that he said that was using Lego was the way he best felt comfortable representing himself on the screen, that he didn't want the documentary to simply be him in a chair talking to a camera or whatever it may be. And he felt more comfortable being able to express his life and through Lego, and that the director also explained how they could go back and actually show pieces of his life that they wouldn't be able to, like his childhood, things like that. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to go back and like film places where he grew up and like his home and things like that, but through Lego they could build it and show it that way. So I thought that was a really interesting point, and it really cleared up why they used Lego for me because I was so lost at that point going into it.
I also, like, my heart melted when he also pointed out the reason he used Lego was so the documentary could be in a format that his kids could watch and understand. Because if you throw a documentary at a kid, they're gonna be like, what am I watching? This is so boring. But then you put it in Lego and they can piece together that this is their dad and also see the changes that he went through in his life while using a little Lego flare that was a little unrealistic. I just thought that was so heartwarming for him to explain his life and his struggles to his kids.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a great decision. So overall, very good film. I think I gave it a 4 star.
I gave it a 5.
As I say, you definitely gave it a 5, I'm
I
sure.
gave it a 5. I was like, rewatch as soon as it comes out, please.
Yeah, I was very impressed by that film. So I'm happy to report that is a good watch to see in the theaters on October 11th. Up next is one that didn't meet our expectations, I think, to an extent. Um, I don't think either of us did not like it, but it wasn't as great as we wanted it to be, and that would be Baby Girl.
I was very confused about where you were going with that because there was quite a few that we were a little disappointed about. But yeah, Baby Girl, I had expectations for this one because, as we all know, Nicole and I love a good romance, but we also love an age gap and women empowerment. I'm bringing it back to you, Nicholas Galitzine, and The Idea of You, um, which is what started this whole podcast. Was us watching The Idea of You and saying, yeah, we have a lot to say.
It's true.
But yeah, Baby Girl, basically the same premise as like The Idea of You, a family affair, older woman in a position of power, flirts with a younger guy, and stuff happens.
And I had such high hopes for this because of course, Nicole Kidman won the Best Actress award at Venice Film Festival recently, where this film premiered at before TIFF. Harris Dickinson, I think, can do no wrong.
Oh,
I love Harris Dickinson. But it just, I hate saying this because I said this to Gracie. This was what I said to her the night we saw it, and I don't like saying it, but it just gave Wattpad. Like,
and to her response, to my response to that was, do not disrespect Wattpad like that.
but for a film that's being released by A24 and to have Harris and Nicole in the leading roles, and it just had such buzz about it. Like, I'm sorry, but a Wattpad movie's not winning Best Actress at Venice. I
Girl, you
was just
gotta stop saying Wattpad. They're gonna
Wattpad,
sue us
Wattpad.
for defamation.
Okay,
Like,
it gives this movie gave online writing fan fiction.
you know what? I gave this film a 3 star, and it was
Yeah.
only a 3 because Nicole talked me up from it. I was gonna do a 2.5, but then she was like, but Harris Dickinson. And I was like, so true, 3. Um, he was deranged in this role, and I'm pretty sure my review reads, I want to be a hater for this film because he's toxic, but I get it. Because you know what? The ladies beside me were fanning themselves and like giggling so hard that I was laughing. And the room was just electric with tension. Like people were loving it, and that's great for them. But personally, I just felt like it fell short. There wasn't, there was a very strange chemistry. I'll give it that.
Yeah.
But also Nicole Kidman's character just irritated me.
I think the problem with it too is like, so the film is supposed to explore um desires that women have and how it's not talked about enough, and women are often felt shamed for having different desires, and it definitely explored that. But just some of the things, I'm not gonna say it because it's just better to be seen to be believed, but like some of the things took it like
There were a few scenes where we were flabbergasted. We were like,
I
what is going on here? And how
like
do you find this attractive? Like to each their own,
yeah.
but not something I want to see in a room full of people on a big screen.
It wasn't even that. It was just strange. Like there were so many things you could have picked out for women to have like basically
I
a
feel like
kink for.
this just makes women look kind of weird.
It's right. Like I'm like, there's so many things. There's so many things you could have done with this. And
You and I are looking around like it's not all women, I promise.
the one thing they chose, I was like, okay, but who wants this? But anyways, not shaming anyone. I just didn't assume that this was a widespread desire. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Maybe it is. Maybe we're just like in the dark, but
I would rather stay
I
that way.
choose to stay in the dark. What's next on our list, Nicole? Moving on from that.
Okay, so another film that we saw was Nutcrackers, which was the opening night selection this year for TIFF. Ben Stiller returns to the big screen in a leading role for the first time in quite a few years, I believe, at least probably like 7 years-ish. And so he plays this uncle who lives in Chicago, big high roller real estate job, and his sister and brother-in-law unfortunately passed away, and he now has found kind of a new role as the father to their 4 children, his 4 nephews, and they live in the middle of farm town nowhere, so now he has to go out there and watch them until the foster agency home or foster agency can find them a placement and foster parents. and they butt heads and they don't get along very well. And then throughout the movie, Ben Stiller's character finds out that these four kids are actually trained in classical ballet. And the story evolves from there, and that's where it kind of picks up. But I did find it odd because that is because it's called Nutcracker, so that's kind of like the big premise of the movie that they're trained in ballet. But we don't actually find that out specifically in the movie until at least Gracie, I would say halfway, right? Which I thought was odd. They were establishing a story, obviously, and establishing what this relationship was like for the five of them, but it was just ballet was mentioned in it prior to this, but not in the sense that they knew how to perform. So I don't know. I thought that was odd.
Would you rate it?
2.5.
We're pretty on the same wavelength because
Yeah.
I also gave it 2.5. And yeah, to Nicole's point, it started out strong and then it got very repetitive throughout the middle. Just them butting heads and Ben Stiller's character trying to find a foster home for them. And then the last 10 minutes were amazing. They were pulling off this dance. Family love was happening. Everybody was working together. Um, but yeah, honestly, as much as I love Ben Stiller and I appreciate what a sweet man he is, um, just was kind of a miss for me. But on that note, the four kids, this was their first ever acting role, so I think they did pretty good, but I also feel like they were just being themselves, which is also very good for child actors. So, you know what? You win some, you lose some.
Yeah, and I think definitely for siblings, I can't imagine getting four siblings on set all the time. Like think about how much I think about how much I would argue with my sister at that age. I can't
Yeah.
imagine two more of us plus trying to actually work. So I say kudos to them for that. But like Gracie kind of alluded to there, we got to speak with Ben Stiller on the red carpet of the opening night. So we'll insert the clips right now for you to hear.
So I'm sure the kids learned so much working alongside you and David and the rest of this casting crew. But I would love to know, did you actually learn anything from working with these young actors yourself? Did they teach you anything?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think I was learned more because they kind of just did their thing and they had no experience in front of the camera ever and were so natural and so charismatic and also like just kids. So sometimes they'd be like, "Do we have to keep doing it?" Like in the middle of the day, they're like, "Can we just like go play?" And they're like, "No, you have to do." It's like now, like with them shoot their side of the scene, and then they put the camera on me, and they'd be like, "Do we have to hang out for this?" I'm like, "Yes, I need you for my off camera. You have to give me as much as you gave," and they don't even understand what I'm talking about. But they were great because they just were like honest and real. And for me as an actor, it was such a learning experience because you have these set ideas of what you think you're supposed to do, and then when someone's just being real and like, oh no, there's no rules, then it's like, all right, I'm just going to be like real with you too and react to you, and so it was fun every day.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
nice to meet you.
I'm a huge fan of your work. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad to see you back in a leading man role.
Thank you.
Actors are often very hard on themselves. I'm wondering, what are you most proud of yourself for in this role, but what are you proud of this whole team about?
I mean, I'm probably most proud of myself for saying yes to this because I knew that going into David Gordon Green's world was going to be special, and he's such a talented director, and his organic feeling for this movie it came from his heart. This idea I want of making a movie about these four kids who are real kids who've never acted before, and telling the story of connection and love, and how people deal with loss, but yet in a really fun, funny way that harkens back to movies from our childhood, kind of family comedies that have like a little bit of an edge. That for me is been the best part of this whole experience. So saying yes to it probably is what I'm most proud of.
Thank you so much.
So, although we did see a lot of our films together, or at least a majority, we did get the chance to see some films separately. Most of Nicole's were horrors because I don't do scary late at night. Maybe if it was during the day, I would have watched them with her, but definitely not at night. So, my first watch without Nicole was Sketch, and it follows a young girl whose peculiar drawings come to life, leaving a wake of chaos and crayon dust. A grieving family has to band together to fight them off in this feature debut. So basically, if you haven't already pieced it together, it's basically like Jumanji, The Goonies, Gremlins, all of those classics. I gave it a 3 stars. It was solid, but it was basically Jumanji, just with kids and really messed up kids, to be honest. Like the stuff this little girl drew should have had her put in therapy, number one, and maybe an asylum because girl was probably a serial killer in another life. Like the stuff she was drawing was just kids in her class getting brutally murdered by these drawings she made. And of course, that does not go well when these drawings come to life. So it was a little bit on the horror side, which surprised me, especially since it was pitched as like a family and learning to deal with grief movie. It definitely did get to that at the end, but throughout it, it was very violent and kind of dark. So wasn't what I was expecting, but it was a very good feature debut. So the second film I watched without Nicole was Bring Them Down, which stars Barry Keoghan. It follows Michael, who is the last son of a shepherding family, and he lives with his father, Ray. When a conflict with the rival farmer, Gary, and his son, Jack, escalates, a devastating chain of events leaves both families permanently altered. Once again, this was another very dark movie that I did not expect to take the turns it did. Barry Keoghan did an amazing performance in this, though. Like, his character had so many plot twists, and the emotion that came out of this man was crazy. But ultimately, it kind of just felt like a really messed up version of Romeo and Juliet, where there's two families that don't like each other and they could have easily solved their differences by talking it out, but instead they resorted to violence and trying to end the other one's livelihood of sheep herding as opposed to being civil people. So enjoy that. I gave it a 3 stars. Definitely a lot of twists and turns. What'd you watch, Nicole?
I saw one that I was very excited to see Saturday night. And I loved it. I thought it was great. I gave it 4.5 stars, I believe. Let me double check that. Yes, 4.5 stars. I thought it was fun. I think a lot of critics are saying that they didn't like how it was very go, go, go. It was very all over the place. But to me, that was the point of the movie. That's exactly what I expected it to be when I went into it, after watching the trailer, after reading the synopsis, knowing what this was about. If you haven't heard us talking about this before, I don't know what this movie is. It basically showcases the final 90 minutes leading up to the first ever broadcast of Saturday Night Live on October 11th, 1975, and Gabriel Bell plays Lorne Michaels, who's the creator of Saturday Night Live. Um, and it was a fun movie. Like, it's one of those movies that you have to go see in the theaters because it's so fun and electric and bright and bubbly and energetic that it's best to be seen on the big screen. All the performances, this is a huge ensemble cast. I mean, I'm talking like at least 40 people are in this movie, just like the main chunk of cast. So they all do a great job, but I think Gabriel Bell stands out for the fact that his character is unlike any of the other characters because he is trying to be optimistic, he's trying to stay positive, he's being the go-getter and trying to get the show to air. And every single other person in this film seems like they don't care at all because they don't have this vision that his character Lorne Michaels has and knowing what he wants the show to be, but he can't verbalize it. So no one really understands what they're doing and what's going to be happening from this show and why he thinks it's going to be so revolutionary. So I like how his character stands out from everyone else because he has to be this different guy in order to make this show get to air on time at 11:30. But I thought it was just a fun movie. I can't wait to go watch it again when it comes out a few weeks in theaters, but I can't suggest it enough. It was one of my, I think it was my fourth favorite film on my box or my on my list. So, love it. I can't tell you to go see it enough. Another one that I saw going to horror is Hold Your Breath, which is Sarah Paulson, and I thought this was a very unique horror film, which I liked. It takes place in Oklahoma in 1930s, I believe. Yes, 1930s. And her husband is out. He is at a job placement trying to get them money so they can move out of this place because her and her two daughters, her two young daughters, are basically stuck in the middle of this dust storm. Like, this area just completely faces dust storms all the time, and they're in the middle of nowhere, nowhere to go. They have no money to go anywhere to. And her daughter, her older daughter, starts reading the younger daughter this scary story from book about an entity called the Gray Man. Basically, you breathe him in and he takes over your body and he makes you do horrible things. So as Sarah Paulson's character catches her reading it to the little sister, she takes it away, but soon after things start happening, and everything goes sideways for them and they have to figure out how to move on from there. Also important to note, Sarah Paulson's character is very complex because it is revealed very early on that she lost another daughter. She did have three daughters, and one passed away from an illness. And so she has a lot of PTSD and trauma and grief from that as well. So it's very complicated how the story intertwines with each other, and I don't want to say too much because it'll give it away, and I want people to be able to figure this out when they watch it. But I think this was a very admirable horror film because it's not focused on jump scares. It's very much psychological, which is something I like in horror films. And yeah, I think the performances are great. The two little girls do such a great job, and I enjoyed this one. I gave it 3.5. Oh no, I gave it 4. Correct. I gave it 4. So I really enjoyed that one for sure. So this is coming out on October 3rd on Hulu. I'm assuming it'll also be on Disney Plus then for people in Canada because we don't have Hulu. And last one I'll talk about without Gracie that I saw is Presence, another horror film, although I wouldn't really categorize this as horror, to be honest. Definitely more of a family drama, psychological, even a little bit of sci-fi, but it has horror elements for sure. This is Steven Soderbergh's latest film, and I think this is this is another one that I really like because of how unique it is. Basically, the entire film, it takes place in one setting. It takes place in this house that this family of four move into, parents and a son and a daughter. And the entire film takes place through the eyes of this entity that is living and inhabited in this house. So everything we see is through the eyes of this entity. And basically, this family is very grief-stricken. They have a lot of pain and anger with each other and other outside things. So once you see the movie, you'll understand why and what is causing them grief. I won't tell you. But I just thought it was really cool to see that horror through the lens of grief and tragedy. And it's very family oriented, but with more drama to it. So I liked it because it was less, like, again, less jump scares, less gore, less these things, and much more reliant on the psychological effects that this family is having from this entity living in their house. So yeah, I thought it was very original. And cinematography was just amazing how it was done. I actually was there for the premiere, so there was the Q&A with the director and the cast, and he talked about how when they filmed it was very much like theater, where they didn't stop any takes and like pick it up halfway through a scene or go back and fix things in one scene. They filmed it from start of the scene to the end of the scene, and if they didn't like the take, they would just do it from start to finish again. So everything you see in the movie, every single scene is one take that they did all at once without stopping. And I think that's really unique to see, and the actors talked about how they really liked that and how it felt like theater, and it allowed them to be more creative with what they were doing. And yeah, I just thought it was really great. Oh, last one I want to mention, because I did bring it up last week, I believe, was Disclaimer. I saw the first 3 episodes last week, and then I watched all 7 episodes. I saw the first 3 again, and then watched all 7 episodes on the final day at TIFF with one of my other friends. And guys, you have to watch. We sat there in disbelief for 10 minutes after the final episode because we didn't even know where to start with the debrief on this show. It is just so good. So directed by Alfonso Cuarón, it is basically follows a similar theme with a lot of movies in TIFF this year and shows with 3 different timelines. And it shows a past timeline and 2 present timelines. So it follows Kate Blanchett, who her character is a journalist, and basically so someone from her past is now blackmailing her with this novel that they wrote based on something she did at a younger age. And so she's been keeping this secret for 20 years and it is now coming unraveled, ruining relationships around her, threatening everything basically in her life. And so as an audience, we get flashbacks of what happened. And then in the present, we're seeing both perspectives, both of the individual who's threatening her and of Kate Blanchett's life. And none of it's really in a linear order, especially the past. We kind of like jump back and forth in this past timeline. So it's not linear at all, kind of similar to We Live in Time, but it's very easy to understand where you are in the story and what you're supposed to be getting at from it. But it's a thinker for sure. This is not a show that you put on in the background when you're doing something else and you're not really paying attention. You need to be focused when you're watching this show because there's so many little intricacies that you need to pick up on and you need to see in order to understand when they come back later. Um, but this cast just blew it out of the water. So it's Kate Blanchett, like I said, Kevin Kline, Sacha Baron Cohen, Leslie Manville, Louis Partridge, and Leah George. I have to say that Louis Partridge really impressed me with his range in this show. Um, he plays two two very different emotional states at different points in this show, and I think that he did justice to both of them for sure. So, yes, I very much enjoyed this. The end will leave you flabbergasted. I will tell you that. Yeah.
I'm always so scared to watch things that you love because I'm afraid you just hype it up so much and then I'm gonna watch it and be like, eh.
No, it's so good.
Like,
It's so good.
let's not forget Twisters when you were like, this is the movie of the summer. And I was like, oh, I'm so ready. I'm so hyped. And I saw it and I was like, eh.
Okay, well, yeah. I still enjoy Twisters and I stand by that.
Yes, me
Anyways,
too. Yeah, I'm excited to watch that one. I was really upset that I didn't get to, but I was on a carpet when it was playing, so missed out on that one, but I will be watching it and I will most likely give a review here. So stay tuned to see if Nicole and I clash on this one or not.
I hope not, because I'm gonna be so sad because it's just oh. Anyways, first two episodes come out on Apple TV Plus on October 11th, and then the rest of the 5 episodes release one at a time each week after that. That is the TIFF wrap up there. I hope you enjoyed watching some of our interview clips that we had in there and hearing some of our reviews. Most of the films, if not every single one of the films we talked about, will be coming out very shortly on either theatrical releases or streaming platforms. So definitely keep an eye out for those because a lot of them are you should not miss.
So, big news, we are teaming up with our friends at the Tarot Group to do a giveaway in honor of the new Despicable Me 4 coming out to DVD. We will be giving away 3 Blu-ray copies of the film.
Yes, and on those copies, the bonus features include 2 new mini movies, deleted, extended, and alternate scenes, despicable dialogue, and so much more.
Yes, to find out more information on how you could win one of these 3 prize packs, make sure to check out our Instagram on our pinned post, and all the information and rules for entry will be on there.
And tune into our episode next week to hear our official review of the bonus features on this DVD. We can't wait to share our thoughts. I love Minions, so I'm very excited. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 20 of As Seen on Screen. I'm Nicole.
And I'm Gracie, and you can find us wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts on Spotify or YouTube.
We'll be back next week with more. See ya.
Bye.